Greetings! This is DJ Ogun coming at you live from the upper echelons to give to you a message that will cleanse your mind, body, and spirit just in the nick of time. Don't forget to love thy neighbor and let this message from my number one homie stick to your ribs in a real intimate way. We ain't never alone in our struggles, and it feels like we ain't got nobody else some days. Go on then. How you been?
This entire thing has been such an arduous process that words are beginning to fail me. I don't even think I can speak properly anymore compared to how I once was. But really, I'm not the one in my household who should be worried the most. Is my mother is basically the only other person who lives with me, or is the only other person who lives with me. And she works as a cook at a senior citizens home here in Connecticut. Excuse me, and oh boy, well, it was all over the news that more than 50% of all the senior citizens have had come down with COVID. Um, Half of my mother's coworkers in the same positions have already, gone home because they actually have contracted the virus, but otherwise they're not really allowed to, per se. Um, I guess they can quit at any time, but that puts them out of a job. Uh, so anyway, my mother goes in every day, and people, senior citizens who she knows are kind of being wheeled out dead. It's really interesting, actually, that this kind of thing doesn't get reported on because, it's just interesting because I saw on national news the other day that somewhere in California, I'd imagine a rich area of California, there were something like 15 people sick with the virus and in a senior citizens home. And not to discredit, because everyone has their own struggles, really, but I'm wondering why 15 people from California made national news before something like 50 people from a senior citizens home here. It was barely covered. It was just on local news, passed over. It's really interesting as well because this information as to what seniors are sick, the info is not being released to the public. So there's a 50-50 shot that if you have a family member in there, they're infected with the virus. And since the place is, I'd say pretty, they don't take the best care of their seniors. And not to mention COVID is pretty deadly to seniors in the first place. It's not a very good place to have COVID. That being said, the Connecticut government, and I suppose, logically speaking, there's a valid strategy involved, but it seems pretty heartless when you just look at it, is they come in and they see that this is the home in Connecticut with the most sicknesses, and they take senior citizens from other homes who have gotten it and ship them over to this one. So now something like 75 to 80% of all the seniors in the building have COVID, and they're not evacuating the healthy ones because who knows, they might be unhealthy. It's just quite the mess. That they're it's being treated like a leper colony, really. If you think about it, it's basically the same thing. Anyway, it's really interesting because I don't really know how people found out about this, but the other day, besides the local news, of course, the other day my mother walks into work, and one of her coworkers says to her that there's people outside holding signs that say to the employees something along the lines of, "You are murderers, you're murderers." And some of the employees were under a lot of stress from that. So my mother goes outside to see. It turns out that the person who spread that information was under so much stress that they read murderers, but the sign said, "You are heroes." So at least at a local level, they're getting some recognition, which is very nice. But I'm not sure it counts as enough. my mother has had her pay raised slightly, um, but really, how is that supposed to entice anyone to happily walk into what's basically, well, she calls it the morgue? Um, Other than that, um, well, I had something else really good to say. Wait one sec. Oh, yeah, well, my mother, she keeps, as somebody, she considered, well, she is a frontline, basically a frontlines worker. She serves the food to the seniors, and she's in those rooms, death rooms. Um, and she sees the commercials, all the commercials that say, thank you, you're heroes. And, well, it might be because she's under a lot of stress, but she sees that and she basically calls it out for being bullshit because she thinks that, and there's some validity to this, she thinks that the real heroes aren't really being thanked. You know, people see the videos of doctors and stuff, and that's cool. The doctors are really putting their all out there, but they're very picturesque, you know what I mean? They're very successful type people. Then you have people like my mother, who, you know, didn't necessarily make much of herself by society's standards. And, well, from her perspective, nobody's out here patting her on the back. I myself have gotten a couple of breaks from deadlines at school, things like that, because luckily there's professors, or all professors really, that from my experience, sympathize with what's going on, and they themselves have struggles. So I've gotten a couple of lucky breaks. But my mother, she's the one who needs lucky breaks, and she hasn't gotten one, and she's not going to get one. Well, in fact, more and more people are, you know, dropping like flies from her work position that she's going into work sometimes even double time. Yeah, it's not necessarily the prettiest situation for her, and the worst part is she really feels like she's not being thanked for it. You know, talking about it like this, it actually makes me think that I should go thank her myself. Uh, she got her stimulus check the other day for the $1,200, and she knew I had broken computer speakers, and the first thing she thought was, hey, I'm going to order you a new pair of computer speakers. Under stress like that, I can't believe that's the first thing she thought of. Anyway, that's kind of just her story. There's so many people suffering from so many different ways regarding this whole thing, and my mother especially, I'm kind of speaking for her right now, finds it really interesting that the types of people who get covered and the types of people who don't. You know, like I said before, doctors and very successful people versus, you know, the janitors in the same exact building who are doing work just as dangerous. Anyway, that's kind of what I have to say on that.
Protesters stood shoulder to shoulder for hours.
Believe me, I have something to say. I work for Sparrow Hospital.
Believe me.
How can I do my job if y'all idiots,
believe me,
are blocking up the way to get to the hospital?
Wearing masks. Now this is during the lockdown, and the place was locked down the entire from visitors.
He described what they did as abandoning their patients.
Staff at this nursing home in Southern California now refusing to show up at work, saying the danger of becoming infected is too great.
I don't want people thinking we're bad. It's just we're not being
There are
properly
people
protected.
dying every minute.
My total priority, believe me, is the United States of America.
If y'all don't take y'all asses home,
you will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials because the revolution will not be televised. You see, a lot of times people see battles and skirmishes on TV and they say, aha, the revolution is being televised. Nah, the results of the revolution are being televised. The first revolution is when you change your mind about how you look at things and see that there might be another way to look at it that you have not been shown. What you see later on is the results of that, but the revolution, that change that takes place, will not be televised. It will not be brought to you by Xerox in 4 parts without commercial interruptions. It will not be brought to you by the Schaefer Award Theater or Miller Lite, starring Natalie Wood and Steve McQueen or Bullwinkle and Julia. The revolution will not be televised. Revolution will not be right back after a message about white lightning, white tornadoes, or white people. You will not have to worry about the dove in your bedroom, the tiger in your tank, or the giant in your toilet bowl. The revolution will not get rid of the nubs. The revolution will not make you look like you lost 5 pounds. The revolution will not be televised. There will be no pictures of you and Willie Mae pushing that shopping cart down the block on the dead run or trying to slide that color TV into a stolen ambulance. NBC will not be able to predict the winner at 8:32 on reports from 29 districts. The revolution will not be televised. The theme song will not be written by Jim Webb or Francis Scott Key, nor sung by Tom Jones, Glenn Campbell, Johnny Cash, or Engelbert Humperdinck, nor none of the other little Humperdinks, should there be any. The revolution will not go better with Coke. The revolution will put you in the driver's seat. The revolution will not be televised, and be no rerun, brothers and sisters. The revolution will be live.